Hello, everybody. Welcome into this Big Rapids Daily News WBRN exclusive interview. Brandon Wirth joined alongside Tyler Friel, a little brother in broadcast with the Butler Radio Network. Here's the news director. And Tyler, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. And certainly been a busy event over the last couple of days here, I'm sure, for you as well. And really with the whole event, obviously you were at the rally on Saturday night where our former President Trump was nearly assassinated, an attempt on an assassination. I guess the first question that I'm sure many people have probably asked you, and we'll ask you the same thing. What did you see being at the event? What was your perspective of it?
Yeah, so I was a part of the media press pool that was there. So I was actually where a lot of the network cameras were, just grabbing some audio and getting ready to take notes. It was obviously a really big crowd. The Butler area is big supporters of former President Trump. They voted pretty handily for him in the last two elections. So when word came out last week that he was going to be coming to the Butler area, people got very excited about it. And the day itself was actually a really hot day, sunshine. There were a couple of people that had to be treated for heat exhaustion throughout the day as well. So it was just kind of one of those events. The crowd filtered in, and it was a pretty big crowd. I've heard estimates from 10 to 15,000. So there were a lot of people that were there to see the former president. He was scheduled to speak around 5 o'clock. He actually didn't get there until 6. So he got on stage a little bit after 6 o'clock. And from that point on, it had the very prototypical Trump rally feel. The people in the crowd very excited to see him. He just started to get into talks on illegal immigration and the southern border, and had asked his AV team actually to put a chart up on the big video boards referencing southern border crossing. So at that point, I actually sat down just to take some notes. And it wasn't too long after that then that we heard the shots fire. When that happened initially, everybody keeps describing it, and it's true. It's just that pop, pop, pop sound. A lot of people are saying it kind of sounded like firecrackers, fireworks, things like that. It took me a second to realize exactly what was happening. I kind of got up and looked, and I was like, what's going on? So Secret Service immediately jump on stage, tackle the former president. And then I was like, I think this is an active shooting. And so I ducked, and the crowd, a lot of people ducking there, a lot of screams, a lot of commotion. And then, there's that moment in time where you're trying to figure out, okay, one, what happened to the former president? Is he okay? There's Secret Service on top. From my vantage point, he was down to the ground. And then you saw him get to his feet, Secret Service covering him like a blanket. And then you see his head. And that's when I was able to see that the blood coming from his ear. And then he put his fist up in the air and then was quickly shuffled off stage, got into a vehicle, and went to a local hospital here in Butler. The crowd then at that point, just shocked and confused, anger at some of them had turned to the press pool to express their anger. But I would say for the most part, it was just general confusion as to, okay, what happened? And then even as we were evacuated, Secret Service coming up to us about 10, 15 minutes afterwards saying, hey, this is an active crime scene. You all got to go. So I grabbed my stuff. I left and was just talking to audience members like, hey, what'd you see? What'd you see? What'd you see? And I'd say to a person, I never got the same answer. So I would say there's just a ton of confusion as to what happened. It wasn't really until I got back to our radio stations, which are about 10 minutes away from where it happened, that I was able to put together the picture.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the crowd. They were in shock that this had happened. And unfortunately, one of the rally members getting hit, multiple that were also injured in the process. Just talk about the emergency response team. Obviously, you mentioned Secret Service getting on top of former President Trump very, very quickly. And then obviously a lot of the really, really big acts that were made as well from a lot of the medical personnel that jumped in, volunteered on the scene to help assist. Just talk about that whole ordeal as well. While many others were probably looking to see what former President Trump was doing leaving, while that was also going on in the process.
Yeah, so after the shooting, the way we were looking at it, so again, if you're watching the camera, it would be to my left, that you see a bunch of people asking for medical help right away. And I figured that was a fairly significant and serious injury. In the aftermath of it, saw that police caution tape had been put around that area. So I figured something serious had happened. I did see, people carrying people off. These were just not volunteers, just random spectators that were there to help police, EMS, all of that, jumped into full force. You saw a lot of people trying to help other people out. With the confusion and shock of it all, that local caring for each other, it was definitely evident that you saw while this whole thing was going down.
For sure. And you mentioned, obviously, the community's reaction to this, I'm sure, has been very emotional over the last 48 hours. What's been the general consensus throughout talking to some of those individuals that were at the rally, as well as community members that are from the area? What's been the biggest response that you've received?
Yeah, just general shock and I can't believe it happened here. As I've been telling folks, our town, the county itself is about 200,000. It's actually one of the few growing counties in Western PA. We've actually had some population growth recently, but violent crime just doesn't happen. I mean, if it does, it's a rare news story for us. And so these are the types of things that you just assume won't happen in your town. Of course, attempted assassinations of presidents just simply don't happen. That's what's obviously made this the story that it is. And the fact that it's Butler, PA, and our town, I'm a lifelong Butler resident. I grew up 5 minutes from the farm show grounds, like where this shooting took place. That was the annual summertime farm show that we would try to sneak into every year. This is just that type of area. And so I think for us, the general consensus, it's not fear. It's more just this shock that I can't believe, one, that this happened here, and two, it happened in our town. Like, it's just been overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people just trying to grasp the concept that Butler's going to be in the history books for something that we never thought we would.
Absolutely. One last question for you, Tyler. Appreciate the time. And first of all, glad that you are okay and that a lot of the community has recovered from this. Obviously, the condolences to the family that did lose a loved one. And that's unfortunate just to see this whole thing play out. But what are some of those additional details that you guys have found in investigations? I'm sure you've probably heard some things, community, given a lot of those details as well. What are some developing things that you guys have heard, over the last 24, 48 hours?
Right now, I think the biggest question, and we're not an exception from that, is how did this happen? In the immediate aftermath of it, Saturday night, the FBI and state police held a briefing and answered some questions, but not all. Mainly, the biggest question is, how was this building basically as unprotected as it was? This is a manufacturing plant. And this abuts the Butler Farm Show grounds. I kind of joked about it earlier, but when we were kids, to get into the farm show, you tried to climb a fence and try to get into it. So what the point of it being is that it's in a residential neighborhood, also adjoining businesses, so that there's a lot of areas that would require security. But where that stage was itself, there was really only one elevated building outside of the farm show ground premises that was in the line of sight, and it was this building. And so the biggest questions right now were, okay, why was this as unprotected how unprotected was it? Whose responsibility was it to cover? And right now, there's not been a clear answer on that. So we've been trying to work with local law enforcement to get some answers on that. The Secret Service, I would say, has not been as revealing as the FBI and state police has been in their investigations. So I think in our attempt to try to learn more information, those have been the areas that we're trying to learn. How was this place, which has woods beside it, which is on a major stretch of road, Route 68, this is an area that was right up against the farm show. Not a surprise. People were there to listen. You can hear the audio perfectly fine. And you wouldn't have to go through the same security protocols, obviously, to be there. And so, which obviously, armchair, security experts will look at that and go, well, how are you not there? But I do think legitimately for those who are there are asking, why was this as unprotected as it was?
This is a big crowd. This is a big beautiful. I wish the fake news back there would show it. I wish they'd spin their cameras and show it, because nobody would believe it. The other day Biden was saying, I've got big crowds, meaning him against big crowds. He doesn't know what a big... And there were like 93 people there. 93,
Absolutely. Thoughts and prayers to you guys in Butler, Pennsylvania. Tyler Friel with the Butler Radio Network. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Brandon.